Since this is our last class before Pesach, I thought I'd leave you an idea that you may want to share with some family and friends over Pesach. We know the Torah says twice, "V'haya ki yishalecha vincha," when your child shall ask you, and I translate the word vincha as child, even though it can be translated as son, because from the poskim it seems that the obligation to engage your child in the discussion of the Exodus applies equally to sons and daughters. There is no distinction in halacha. Even though sometimes the word bincha literally only means son, like v'shinantam levanecha, that there's only a mitzvah of teaching Torah to sons, there's no mitzvah of teaching Torah to daughters. But nonetheless, when it comes to the mitzvah of the Haggadah, of engaging your children in V'higadata levincha, it doesn't literally mean sons and not daughters, it means all children. So the Torah says twice, V'haya ki yishalecha vincha. It's not just enough to teach your child, but your child has to ask you the question. When your son asks you the question, mazos, what is going on? This is the way that Haggadah characterizes the question of the tam, of the simple son, or the simple child, V'yomarta elav b'chozik yad hotzianu Hashem mitzrayim, etc. You will say to him that God took us out of Egypt with a strong hand. The Mishnah, in discussing the order of the Seder, says, Mazgulo kos sheni, we pour the second cup, V'kan haben shoel aviv. And it is at this point that the child shall ask his father. And here again, the poskim say that it's not just a father, but if there is no father present, then the mother should be the one that is asked by the child. V'im ein da'as beven, if the child does not have the intelligence yet or the sophistication to ask a question, aviv milamdo, his father should teach him to say the following question: Ma nishtana halayla hazeh mikol halaylot. Why is this night different from all other nights? So this is in the Mishnah. This is how we know that. This is how the Haggadah knows, because it's actually codified in the Mishnah itself. And of course, the Mishnah's questions are not exactly the same four questions, because the Mishnah was written at a time when there was still a sacrificial order. But that's not going to be our discussion for today. Really, what's interesting is that we don't actually start Magid with the child saying Ma nishtana. There's a prefatory paragraph that comes before the child asks Ma nishtana, and it's the halach ma'anya. We actually say that before the child, after Kiddush, before the child says Ma nishtana. We uncover the matzah, and we say, this is our bread of affliction. All who are hungry, let them come and eat, etc., etc. Where does this come from? It comes from the idea, first of all, there's a long discussion of the history of halach ma'anya, why it's in Aramaic and so forth. And there's actually some very, very credible meforshim who say that halach ma'anya originally was not positioned here, but it was actually positioned much earlier, perhaps even on Erev Pesach. Some historians point out that the halach ma'anya was really the time before you made Kiddush. You would actually open the door and go out into the street and say, halach ma'anya kol dichfin yetei ve'ichol, whoever's hungry, let them come and eat. Because that's a legitimate invitation. That's a more authentic invitation, right? I mean, if you're saying to let all who are hungry come and eat, you're saying it after Kiddush and after you've already closed the door. So who are you really inviting? So there are some historians who argue that the reason why the custom changed is because of religious persecution during centuries of Christian persecution of Jews for having a Passover Seder. It was literally, you were putting your life in your hands if you walked outside of your house the night of Pesach, which coincided with the night of Easter. And if you did so, there were in many countries, in Spain and Italy, in the Rhineland, there were people who would go out hunting for Jews that night. I mean, it was really quite scary in many communities. So you had to close the door, and you would only issue the invitation quietly, and that's the custom that lingered to this day. And the vestige of our original minhag of halach ma'anya is that after the meal is over and all of the shikorim have gone to bed, all of the drunkards have retired for the evening, then we open the door. Then we open the door, because now it's safe, because it's 1 o'clock in the morning. And we say, as a reminder of how resentful we are that we couldn't issue the invitation properly, we say, Shvo chamascha el hagoyim. Pour out your wrath against those nations who know you not, O Lord. Yes, Linda?
I don't know if you've heard of this, but I think Rabbi Grover, you know Rabbi Grover?
Yes.
He gave a talk once on Pesach about, I think it was this old custom, I think it was in Iran, that they actually used to take the wine and go out to all the enemies' homes and pour it on wherever they live.
Interesting. Okay. Anyway, so that's the historical explanation as why we say halach ma'anya at this point. But the truth is that part of the benefit of saying halach ma'anya immediately before the child asks is that we're doing bizarre behavior in order to create a dynamic where a child who is intelligent enough is supposed to look at things, what's going on? What is going on? And really, you don't see from the Mishnah that you're supposed to do strange things in order to pique the curiosity of the child. But I do believe that this is a tradition that goes back to the times of Moshe Rabbeinu and the Jewish people. And I wanted to point that out to you. It's not doesn't necessarily lend itself to a direct connection, but take a look. The story is in Parshas B'Shalach, after the Jews have already left Mitzrayim, after Kriyas Yamsuf, after the sea has already been split. The Torah says at the beginning of Perek Tes Zayin, Vayilonu kol hadas b'nei Yisrael al Moshe ve'al Haron b'midbar. The Jewish people began to complain against Moshe and Aaron. Now, this is when, historically, this is 1 month after Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's the 15th of Iyar, so it's a month. The Jews have had a chance to digest all of their experiences at the time of Yetzias Mitzrayim, and perhaps the memory is beginning to fade just a little bit. So they start complaining. Vayomru lehem b'nei Yisrael, mi yitein museinu biyad Hashem be'eretz Mitzrayim, b'shivteinu al sir habasor be'ochninu lechem lasova. Right? It would have been much better if we would have at least died in Egypt, having plenty of food, and not dying of starvation out here in the desert. Instead, you took us out here to die by hunger. We'd rather die of natural causes in Egypt. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe. So Hashem tells Moshe, don't worry. Hineni mamtir lachem lechem min hashamayim, v'yatsa ha'am v'laketu devar yom b'yomo leman anasenu hayelich b'sorasiim lo. Hashem tells Moshe, I'm going to rain down bread from heaven. The people will gather it on a daily basis, and I will test them thereby to see if they have proper emunah, if they have proper faith. And then Hashem explicitly tells Moshe, V'haya bayom hashishi, v'hechinu es asher yaviu. On Friday, Moshe, I want the Jews to prepare an extra portion of man to bring into their homes. It should be a double portion. Okay? You're familiar with this story, right? This story is why we have Lechem Mishnah at every Shabbos meal, to remind us of the double portion of the manna. Now, take a look at the next part of the story. We're skipping several psukim. We go to Pasuk Chaf Aleph. Vayilketu oso baboker ish kefi ochlo v'cham hashemesh v'namas. Every person gathered a daily ration every morning, and then whatever was left over in the afternoon would be evaporated by the sun. Okay? Next, Vayhi bayom hashishi laketu lechem mishneh shnei ha'omer lo echad. On Friday, everyone went out together and they discovered that there was twice as much mun out in the field. So they brought this back, Vayavo'u kol nisiyei ha'edah vayagidu leMoshe. And so the tribal princes come to Moshe and say, what's going on? Vayomer aleihem. And Moshe tells them, oh, let me tell you. Hu asher diber Hashem. Shabbaton Shabbat Kodesh Lashem Machar. It is a holy Sabbath for the Lord tomorrow. Eit asher tofu efu ve'eit asher tevashelu bashelu ve'eit kol ha'odev hanichu lachem lemishmeret ad haboker. Bake and cook whatever you'd like for today. And whatever you don't want, whatever is excess, leave for tomorrow because there won't be any mun for you to gather tomorrow. Vayanichu oto ad haboker kasher tziva Moshe v'lo hiv'ish v'rima lo hayta bo. And that's exactly what they did, even though previously when they had left anything over, it would become wormy, but miraculously the mun from Friday did not become wormy overnight. And therefore, Vayomer Moshe ichluhu hayom ki Shabbat hayom Lashem. Hayom lo timtsa'uhu basada. And Moshe tells him, don't worry, there's nothing toxic or bad or rancid about this leftover mun. It's good for Shabbos, and that's what you should eat. Sheishes yamim tilketuhu, uvayom hashvi Shabbos lo yihiyabo. For 6 days you shall gather it, and on the 7th day there will be no mun available for you. So you have to prepare on Friday for Shabbos. There's only one problem with the story, very, very glaring problem with the story. When you compare God's command to Moshe and the way that Moshe presented them with the principles of Shabbos. Does anyone know what the glaring problem that I'm referring to is? Yes.
God tells them, tell them these things, about the whole week, and Friday will be like this, and you'll get double and take twice as much. He doesn't tell them that.
Excellent, Vivian.
They
right.
see it and they say, what's this?
What's going on? Right? Why is there twice as much mun out in the field? Exactly. Hashem told Moshe, tell the people that there is going to be a Shabbos, and they're therefore going to have a double portion on Friday. But Moshe doesn't do that. He just says, okay, Chevra, go out and take your daily ration of mun. He doesn't tell them about Shabbos. And it's on Friday where the tribal princes are saying, what's going on? Why is there twice as much mun that people are schlepping home? We don't understand. Oh, Shabbos. Tell them, explain to them what's going on. Why didn't Moshe teach them outright? So, Rashi tells us, if you take a look at Rashi says, Vayagidu leMoshe, Sha'aluhu mahayom yomayim. They said, why is today any different from all other days? Umikan yesh lilmod she'adayin lo higid lahem Moshe parshat Shabbat shenitztavel omar lahem v'haya bayom hashishi v'heichinu ad shesha'alu et zot. From here we see that Moshe failed to teach them about Shabbos until they actually asked about it. Amar lahem hu asher diber Hashem shenitztaveti lomar lachem. And that's why Moshe had to respond in Pasuk Chaf Gimel by saying, oh yeah, by the way, Hashem commanded me that you should have a Sabbath and you should have double portion on Friday. And then Rashi concludes, Ulechach ansho hakatuv. And that's why Moshe was punished. Moshe was punished for having failed to educate the people properly by doing what Hashem told him to do. She'amar lo ad matai me'antem. That Hashem chastises the people because some people went out on Shabbos to look for mun and they couldn't find. 1 second. And Hashem chastises them, all of the Jewish people, and says, for how long will you refuse to follow my will? And basically Hashem is including Moshe in that chastisement. V'lo hotzeh min haklal. The reason why Moshe is included is Hashem is really saying to Moshe, had you properly prepped and prepared the people for Shabbos in advance, perhaps you would have been able to avert this skepticism that people had about Shabbos, because it was an afterthought, Moshe. Basically, you never told them about Shabbos, so they learned to accept that we're going to get mun every day. When twice as much man came on Friday. He said, oh, by the way, that's meant for Shabbos. Don't go outside. Well, the way that you presented it to them was not reassuring enough because you didn't tell them in advance.
It didn't present Shabbos in a very good light either.
It didn't present Shabbos in a positive,
the importance of it.
proactive, right, light. It was only reactive. One second. I'm going to take your questions in a minute. I just want to get this point across. According to Rashi, therefore, you see that this was viewed as something erroneous or less than perfect that Moshe Rabbeinu did. However, take a look at Rashi's grandson, the Rashbam. And the Rashbam has a different attitude to what was going on. Vayagidu leMoshe. They told Moshe that there was twice as much shman out in the field. Ma shematzu mishneh v'im yotiru mimenu ad machar. They basically said, Moshe, there's twice as much shman out in the field. What should we do? Should we leave it over? What should we do with all of this surplus? U'Moshe lo higid lahem ad ata ma she'amar lo hakadosh miyom harishon v'haya bayom hashishi v'echinu et asher yaviu v'haya mishneh. Moshe did not tell them, had not told them at this point what to do with the excess man on Friday. Next pasuk, the Rashbam says, "Vayomer alehem hu asher diber Hashem." Moshe says, that's what God meant. Miyom harishon va'ani lo higadati lachem. God had told this to me already from the first day, from Sunday, when months first started to fall. On the 15th of Iyar, God already told me that there was going to be a Sabbath, and then on Friday there was going to be a double portion. U'Moshe nitkavein sheyihiyu temehim kisheyimtzeu mishneh. And this is the crucial line. Moshe did this deliberately, not in error. He did this because he wanted people to be surprised and perplexed when they would find a double portion. Lohudia lahem ata kivodo shel yom hashabbat. Because he wanted to instruct them about the honor of Shabbos. He wanted to engage them about the honor of Shabbos. In other words, the Rashbam says just to the opposite of his grandfather Rashi. It's not that Moshe did this as an afterthought. Moshe knew exactly what he was doing by not telling them about Shabbos. Why did he not instruct them? Because he wanted them to be inquisitive and curious about what strange things they were being witness to, so that they would be engaged and active learners and participants in the process. That's why Moshe did it. Now, the Rashbam has a very good thesis. Does he have a basis for what he's saying, or is he just sort of conjecturing this idea? So I found a very interesting midrash. It's a midrash in the Mechilta, which actually corroborates what the Rashbam says. Vayhi bayom hashishi laktu lechem mishneh, Rabbi Yoshua omer ze lechem kaful shenei haomer la'echad. It means that there was a double portion, twice as much as you would normally get. Vayavohu kol nesiei ha'edah v'gomer, amru lo, Moshe Rabbeinu, ma nishtana hayom hazeh, Mikol Hayamim. Sound familiar? They said to Moshe, why is this day different from all other days? And that to me confirms the Rashbam. In other words, it's no coincidence. The Mechilta, which is being authored by the same people who author the Mishnah, perhaps even earlier than the Mishnah, are essentially saying the exact same language that we want a child to say. That this is the source in the Torah itself, that when you have an opportunity to engage someone educationally in aspects of Judaism, and you want them to be able to be actively involved and excited about the living experience that they were about to partake in, you should cause them to be curious. You should cause them to ask the questions. And that's how our sages know that when the Torah says that when your son asks you, it doesn't just mean that if he happens to ask you. That we have a certain level of obligation to create circumstances where the child shall ask. And that's why in their wisdom, they put halach ma'anya there because when we create a circumstance which causes our children to act curious and to ask questions, that's when we're fulfilling this directive, this lesson that we learned from Moshe Rabbeinu about the man. Now you could say, well, the man, what's the connection to Pesach? Well, what's the last matzah that we eat the night of the Seder? Afikomen, which is Japanese for matzah, right? Isn't it? No. It sounds like a Japanese word, doesn't it? Like Pokemon, right? But it's not. It's actually Greek, according to some commentaries. But it's also afiku man. Afiku means produce, as a verb, produce, manna, man. In other words, many Meforshim say that the matzah that we eat at the end of the Seder is different from the matzah that we eat at the beginning of the Seder. The matzah that we eat at the beginning of the Seder is to remind us of lechem oni, the bread of affliction. The matzah that we eat at the end of the Seder is a reminder of the bread of redemption, or the special matzah that we will eat when Mashiach comes, which represents the triumphal bread of salvation, or the manna itself. Maybe it's just coincidence, but the word man stands for manishtana. Not sure if that's just a coincidence or not, but it's two letters, mem nun. But the point is that it's the bread, it's the food that is supposed to arouse curiosity. Hashem wants us to lead a curious life. And I'll just take it one step further, and with this we will conclude. The reason why we need to have children or people who are going to ask questions at the Seder is not just so that they can be properly educated and be active learners, but it's also that we can relive the sense of wonderment and curiosity through our own children's eyes. And I've often said, if you go to Disneyland by yourself, okay, new. If you've never been there, it's something to see. It's like going to any tourist site for the first time. You see it. But if you take your 5 or 6-year-old grandchild to Disneyland for the first time, it's a completely different experience. Your child or grandchild is a completely different experience. The experience is seeing the world through his or her eyes and seeing the wonderment of It's a Small World and all of those other feature attractions. And the reason is because we say Chadei Shemenu Kekedem. We pine for those days when life was wondrous, when we were just filled with wonderment. And to be able to relive that wonderment through our children is an inspiration for us. And that's what we should be striving for. To create those opportunities for our children to be filled with wonderment, which ultimately is to our own benefit, so that we can relive our moments of wonderment and get rid of the cynicism and the jaded nature of the adult human experience. That's one of the reasons why the Seder is such an exciting time, because it allows us to relive that sense of wonderment through our children and grandchildren. Okay, questions, comments? Go ahead, please.
But the people were witnessing the falling of the man and the double portion from the beginning of their sojourn in the desert. But the Torah hadn't been received yet, so how does this work chronologically?
Chronologically,
about Shabbos, but he hadn't learned it, or had he learned it?
Right. There were certain a small set of mitzvot that they were given before they actually came to Mount Sinai. And Shabbos was the one that the Torah mentions by name, is that they were given the mitzvah of Shabbos before they even came to Har Sinai. Yes, anyone else? Mrs. Sachachevsky, did you want to say something?
No, I was just thinking while you were describing it that pedagogically, I think it's always preferable to have the student, whether it's a child or an adult, elicit the question himself, or, not to spoon feed them, but to set up, the information so that they themselves come to the question.
You're right.
That's probably what Moshe was trying to do, although I could see the case could be made that if Hashem directly instructs you not to do that, you probably shouldn't.
Well, so that's the basis of the machlokas between Rashi and the Rashbam, right? In other words, two different ways of looking at it. Moshe, it's true for the good students, you know, for the ones that sit up in the front of the class that want to be the teacher's pet. They really had an amazing experience by you setting it up this way, right? Kids in the back of the class, not so much. In other words, maybe those kids who are already maybe teenagers and a little bit cynical already, and they saw that you only mentioned it as an afterthought. So it could go, theoretically, it could go both ways. You have to be careful about it. You have to know who your customers are, yes? That's why we have 4 sons at the Seder. Yeah.
Is there any way we could maybe at some point in the future, with all these sources that you always mention, you know, is there any way that you could make like one sheet that sort of we could follow chronologically where they are? Because sometimes I get, you know, that you always mention, you know, from different eras, different centuries, and it would be helpful. I know it's probably a big.
No, it's not a big thing. That's a great idea.
So we could maybe just refer.
I'd like a reference sheet to see.
Like who they are, and like just generally, because I find it confusing sometimes.
Great idea. Great idea. Okay, something to work on. Okay.
You were talking about it's good to see the world through your children's eyes, and absolutely that has been a highlight for me as a parent when my kids are young. But there's a lady that comes here, she's not here today, who's about tshuva. And the way she talks, everything's like wondrous to her, and she talks with such excitement. And I said to Rochel last week, it's so wonderful to see an adult who's like amazed by this. I mean, I was that person a long time ago, but it's very inspiring to see that.
Then you made Pesach a few times, and you said, it's enough.
But
It's enough wonderment for me.
Is there too much importance put on the parent with the child? What about all these parents that are childless?
It doesn't have to be your own child. It could be someone else's child. The point is,
Do they want to live vicariously through somebody else's child?
yes, that's the point. The point is live vicariously when you can take lessons from other people and see life through their eyes. If they're looking at things with wonderment, you should strive for that. It's not living vicariously so much, but just gaining that inspiration to say, I remember when I was like that, and I miss those days, and I want to recapture that. Okay, Chag Kasher v'Sameach. Get back to work.